The sun set with a weary sigh over the sprawling cityscape of New Eden, its last rays glinting off the glass and steel of the towering structures that had once been symbols of human ingenuity and ambition. Now, they stood as half-lit monuments to desperation, the last bastions of a civilization on the brink of collapse. Captain Alex Morgan watched the sun's descent from the observation deck of the Genesis Command Center, the launch site for humanity's most audacious mission yet. In his weathered face, each line told a story of battles fought and lost, of a planet loved and lamented. His eyes, a piercing shade of gray, reflected a resolve that had been hardened in the fires of Earth's relentless decline. Around him, the command center buzzed with a frenetic mixture of anxiety and action. Democrats, engineers, and technicians scurried through their final checks, their voices a low hum against the backdrop of whirring computers and hissing airlocks. Screens flashed with data, holograms danced with trajectories, and the air was thick with the scent of recycled oxygen and anticipation. Captain Morgan came a voice crisp and urgent. Alex turned to face Dr. Elora Miles, the mission's lead scientist, her face illuminated by the soft glow of her tablet. "All systems are green. The fleet's ready. It's time." Alex nodded, a silent acknowledgement of the weight they all carried. They were leaving a dying Earth, not in the wake of discovery or exploration, but survival. The fleet comprised 12 ships, each a marvel of technology and hope, carrying the first wave of colonists to Eldoria, a distant planet that promised a new start. The journey to Eldoria was not just a leap across space, but into the unknown. Humanity had sent probes, received images of lush green forests and vast oceans, a stark contrast to the parched expanses of Earth. But the Eldorians, the native inhabitants, remained a mystery, intelligent and seemingly advanced, yet unresponsive to humanity's tentative calls. As Alex made his way to the central bay, the gravity of his task settled on his shoulders, like a cloak woven from the very stars they aimed to traverse. Each step was a step away from a world gasping its last, towards a world that might not want them. In the bay, the crew was assembling, a microcosm of Earth's diversity. Faces marked by determination and fear, some bore expressions of stoic resignation, others of burning zeal. They were pioneers of necessity, each carrying the burden of continuation, the seed-bearers of humanity. "Ladies and gentlemen," Alex began, his voice steady, echoing slightly in the vast chamber. "Today, we embark on a journey not just for ourselves, but for the future of our species. Eldoria is more than a new home. It's our hope, our very survival." He paused, allowing his gaze to meet those of his crew, seeing his own resolve mirrored back at him. "We know the challenges," he continued, "a journey of many months through the unknown, and a reception that is uncertain. But we carry with us more than just the hopes of the people left behind. We carry their spirits, their dreams. We will not fail them." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crew, a wave of solidarity that fortified Alex's heart. As the final checks were completed and the crew boarded their respective vessels, Alex took one last look at Earth through the command center's viewport. The planet, blue and beautiful, seemed to whisper through the cosmos, a soft plea for her children to find their way in the vast, indifferent universe. With a deep breath, Alex turned and boarded the lead ship, the Pathfinder. The massive doors sealed with a definitive hiss, a sound that marked the end of an era and the beginning of another. Above them, the engines ignited, a roar that drowned out the doubts and fears. The fleet lifted off, ascending through the Earth's atmosphere, a spear of hope thrust into the darkening skies. As the stars beckoned, Alex felt the weight of Earth's last hope on his shoulders, but alongside it, there stirred a burgeoning sense of promise, a promise of rebirth among the stars. The vast expanse of space, once a canvas of unending blackness speckled with distant stars, now loomed large with the verdant contours of Eldoria. As the human fleet neared the planet, the tension aboard the flagship was palpable. Captain Alex Morgan stood on the command deck, his gaze fixed on the approaching world. The crew members around him operated in hushed tones, their usual banter replaced by an anxious silence. Eldoria was breathtaking, a tapestry of blues and greens swirling beneath wispy clouds. It was a stark contrast to the barren, graying earth they had left behind. Yet for all its beauty, the planet was a fortress, hiding its secrets behind a veil of lush forests and deep oceans. As the fleet entered the planet's orbit, Alex initiated the first contact protocols. His voice echoed through the ship's intercom, a steady calm in the storm of uncertainty. All stations prepare for landing procedures and diplomatic outreach. Remember, we are not conquerors, but seekers of sanctuary. Meanwhile, deep within Eldoria's dense forests, the Eldorians were already aware of the alien visitors. Lyra, clad in her ceremonial armor, stood among her people at the edge of a clearing. Her eyes, reflecting the planet's vibrant foliage, scanned the skies with a mix of curiosity and caution. The Eldorians had advanced sensory technologies that had detected the human fleet long before it reached their atmosphere. The news had rippled through their communities like a gust through the treetops, stirring a mix of excitement and fear. As the human ships descended, a group of Eldorian scouts, led by Lyra, maneuvered through the forest with grace, their movements as silent as the falling night. They reached a vantage point overlooking the landing site, a wide plain bordered by towering waterfalls. The first human shuttle touched down, its hull gleaming under the alien sun. Alex stepped out, flanked by his officers, all clad in their utilitarian space attire, a stark contrast to the colorful environment. He took a deep breath, tasting the air of Eldoria. It was crisp, filled with the scent of an alien flora. "Stay sharp," he murmured to his team, his voice barely above a whisper, aware that any misstep could lead to conflict. Lyra watched from the shadows, her keen eyes analyzing the newcomers. Their technology was impressive, but it was their intentions she sought to understand. She signaled to her scouts to remain hidden, observing the humans' every move. Alex, feeling the weight of countless eyes upon him, raised a device designed to facilitate communication. It projected a holographic image of Eldoria and Earth, symbolically linked by peaceful gestures. "We come in peace, seeking friendship and refuge," he announced, his voice amplified to carry across the clearing. The Eldorians, hidden amongst the foliage, exchanged glances. Lyra's hand rested on the hilt of her blade, a precautionary habit. But as she watched the holograms flicker between the two worlds, her grip loosened slightly. These creatures seemed different from the conquerors of old tales passed down in Eldorian lore. With a swift motion, Lyra stepped into the open, her appearance causing a ripple of surprise among the humans. Her skin shimmered with a subtle glow, her attire blending with the natural surroundings, yet distinctly alien in its elegance. "Stop," she said, her voice carrying across the field in Earth's English, which she had learned from intercepted transmissions. "We observe, we judge, speak your purpose truly." Alex, taken aback by her sudden appearance and fluent speech, nodded respectfully. "We seek only to share your world, not to claim it. Our planet is dying, and with it our hope. Help us restore that hope." The air hung heavy with anticipation, the fate of two civilizations teetering on the edge of understanding or conflict. Above them, the skies of Eldoria stretched wide and clear, a silent witness to the unfolding drama. Lyra, her gaze fixed on Alex, contemplated the sincerity of his plea. Here beneath the ancient canopies of Eldoria, the first fragile threads of dialogue were spun, delicate yet filled with the potential to weave a tapestry of alliance or unravel into war. The rust-colored dust of Eldoria swirled under the relentless gusts, casting a veil over the first tumultuous meetings between human and Eldorian. Most in Alex Morgan stood facing the contingent of lithe, tall beings whose iridescent eyes reflected the alien landscape with a mix of curiosity and weariness. Lyra, flanked by her cadre of warriors, regarded the humans with a diplomat's cautious poise, yet her stance was unmistakably defensive. The Eldorians, adorned in sleek armor that mimicked the hues of their vibrant ecosystem, moved with a grace that belied their readiness to strike. In contrast, the humans' bulky spacesuits and clunky gear seemed cumbersome, too tied to a dying Earth's desperate technology. The initial attempts at communication were clumsy, marred by the crude translations of the humans' devices, which garbled the fluid tonal nuances of the Eldorian language. Every misinterpreted gesture and misunderstood word deepened the divide, seeding distrust. When a young human jittery from the high stakes mistook an Eldorian ceremonial blade for a weapon, his panicked shout was the spark in a powder keg of tension. The Eldorians responded with swift precision. In a fluid, almost choreographed motion, they drew their own blades, the metal gleaming ominously against the twin suns of their world. The human troops, trained for combat but unprepared for the speed of their counterparts, scrambled to ready their weapons. Captain Morgan, realizing the perilous edge upon which they teetered, raised his hands, a universal gesture of peace, or so he hoped. "Hold your fire," he bellowed over the commotion, his voice barely carrying over the whirlwind of dust and rising tempers. Lyra, her gaze fixed on Morgan, gave a subtle flick of her wrist. Her warriors paused, the tension palpable in the air, a living thing that threatened to suffocate all in its grip. "We seek no conflict," she projected her voice, her command of English surprisingly clear, though tinged with an exotic accent that made her words almost melodic. It was a standoff that lasted mere minutes, but felt like eternities to those caught in its midst. Finally, with a cautious diplomacy born of necessity, Morgan nodded slowly. "Nor do we wish to fight," he replied, his voice steady. "We came seeking friendship and help." Gradually, weapons were lowered, though no side turned their backs, not yet. The mistrust remained, a barrier thicker than the atmospheric shields of the human ships. Later, under the ochre sky streaked with purple at sunset, Morgan and Lyra met again, this time in a tent erected halfway between their respective camps. The atmosphere was stiff, charged with the day's near violence. "You must understand," Morgan began, the weight of Earth's desperation evident in his voice. "We did not come here to conquer, but to seek a new chance at life. Our planet, our people are dying." Lyra listened, her expression unreadable. When she spoke, her voice was soft but firm. "And why should our world pay for the failures of yours? Eldoria is not merely a refuge to be claimed, it is our sacred trust." The discussion that followed was a painstaking dance of words. Every sentence was measured, weighed for hidden meanings. They spoke of potential alliances and shared technologies, of guarantees and cultural exchanges. Yet, beneath the diplomatic overtures, the shadow of the day's misunderstanding loomed large. As the stars began to emerge, twinkling through the thin fabric of the tent, both leaders stepped outside. Together they looked up at the unfamiliar constellations, a silent acknowledgement of their shared smallness in the vast universe. "Perhaps," Lyra said, breaking the silence, "there is more that unites us than we have dared to believe." Morgan nodded, allowing himself a small smile. The chapter closed on a fragile truce, a hesitant pause in the march towards either mutual destruction or collective survival. The air between the camps was still charged, the night's peace tenuous, but for the moment it held. The news spread through the human encampment like wildfire, not by official channels, but whispered fearfully between soldiers and settlers huddled beneath the foreign stars. Thrakos, an intergalactic warlord of ill repute, was headed toward Eldoria. The chilling reports detailed a fleet that devoured planets in its path, exploiting and decimating without remorse. Captain Alex Morgan, standing stoically at the edge of the camp, stared out into the verdant expanse that separated them from the Eldorians. His mind was as turbulent as the swirling clouds above Eldoria's horizon. Elsewhere, under a canopy woven from the luminescent leaves of Eldora trees, Lyra, the Eldorian commander, received the same grim tidings. Her luminous, sharp eyes reflected a storm fiercer than the one brewing in the skies. The Eldorians had known peace for centuries, their weapons as dormant as the legends of old wars whispered by the winds through the towering elm-spire forests. The necessity for a truce between humans and Eldorians had never been more urgent. With a weighty resolve, Alex initiated a covert communication to Lyra, proposing a clandestine meeting midway between their respective camps at the ruins of an ancient Eldorian observatory, a place regarded by the locals as a testament to times when the stars were the only witnesses to Eldorian secrets. Under the cloak of night, Alex ventured out alone, evading the watchful eyes of his own people. The gravity of the situation lent his steps a determined cadence, his usually bright eyes now shadowed by the prospects of diplomacy with the people they barely understood. Lyra moved through the dense foliage with the grace of a ghost, her form barely disturbing the air around her. Her mind was a whirlwind of strategy and skepticism. Trust was not given freely in Eldorian culture, especially to those who had arrived uninvited to their world. Yet the survival of her people might hinge on the fragile hope that these outsiders could be allies. The ruins stood solemnly under the twin moons of Eldoria, their stones etched with the tales of 1,000 years. As Alex approached, the silhouettes of the broken pillars cast long shadows that seemed to reach out like the fingers of the past, grasping for a future that remained uncertain. Lyra was already there, her figure emerging from the shadows as if she were part of them. The dim light played across her features, highlighting the angular elegance of her face and the subtle glow of her skin, reminiscent of Eldoria's own ethereal beauty. "And Morgan," she greeted, her voice carrying the coolness of the night wind. "This meeting is irregular," she continued, her tone guarded yet not devoid of curiosity. Alex nodded, his gaze steady. "Commander Lyra, I know our arrival was unheralded and unwelcome, but I come before you now out of necessity." He paused, taking a moment to choose his words with care. "Our worlds face a common enemy in Thrakos. Alone we might fail, but together we stand a chance." Lyra's eyes narrowed, analyzing the sincerity in Alex's posture, the earnestness that seemed to emanate from his every pore. "Thrakos is ruthless, more than you can imagine. Why should we believe that your people will stand with us when the skies darken with his ships?" Alex's response was resolute. "Because, Commander, our planet, my home, is dying. We have nothing left to lose, and everything to gain by standing with you. Your fight is ours as much as it is yours." The air between them thickened with the weight of unspoken commitments, and the faint yet tangible birth of trust. Lyra stepped forward, extending her hand, a traditional Eldorian gesture of truce rarely offered to outsiders. "Let us then prepare together," she declared as Alex took her hand, the contact bridging worlds. They spent the remainder of the night poring over maps and data, forging a strategy that was as much about defense as it was about learning from each other. It was a dance of diplomacy and warfare, each step meticulously planned under the stars that bore witness to the nascent alliance that might yet save them all. As dawn crept over the horizon, casting a golden glow on the broken pillars, Alex and Lyra stood shoulder to shoulder, no longer representatives of distant worlds but comrades in arms, united under the banner of survival against a common foe. The storm was approaching, but so too was the dawn of a new understanding. In the waning light of Eldoria's twin suns, Captain Alex Morgan and Lyra, the Eldorian warrior, stood across from each other in a secluded glade. The site was a sacred place, chosen by Lyra not only for its privacy, but also for its symbolic significance. The Meeting of Spirits, it was called, where Eldorian ancestors were believed to have brokered peace with rival tribes. The air was thick with tension, the lingering distrust palpable. Alex's gaze briefly swept over the serene landscape, its beauty a stark contrast to the troubled thoughts racing through his mind. Lyra, interpreting his silence as hesitation, straightened her posture, her features set in determination. "Captain Morgan," she began, her voice echoing slightly in the open air, "I understand the grievances of my people as much as you carry the weight of humanity's survival on your shoulders. But we stand on a precipice where our mutual destruction is assured, unless we forge a path forward together." Alex nodded, acknowledging her words. He had rehearsed his appeal countless times during the journey to this meeting point, yet the gravity of the moment lent a certain heaviness to his voice. "Lyra, I come here not as a conqueror, but as a seeker of refuge. Earth is dying. We need your help, and in return, we offer our cooperation. Your enemies are now ours, and together we can defeat Thrakos." The mention of Thrakos seemed to stiffen Lyra's resolve. She moved closer, her eyes searching Alex's. "Thrakos cares not for the sanctity of life, be it human or Eldorian. His greed will drain our planet as surely as it will yours." They walked slowly around the glade, each step a tentative move towards understanding. Lyra pointed towards the towering groves that encircled them, their leaves whispering in the gentle breeze. This glade has been a witness to alliances that have withstood the sands of time. Let us too make a pact here, one that respects our people's rights and champions our combined strength. Alex felt a shift within him, a loosening of the tight knot of apprehension. She extended his hand, a human gesture of agreement and respect. Lyra looked at it, a frown momentarily creasing her brow, then recognizing the gesture placed her hand in his, her grip firm. "We need to set terms that ensure no transgression," Lyra proposed, as their hands parted. "A joint council to govern our actions, a shared strategy for defense, and open channels of communication." "Agreed," Alex said quickly. "And let's establish an exchange program. Your people can teach us about Eldoria's ecosystems, and our engineers can share advancements in technology and medicine." As the first stars of the evening blinked into existence above, Lyra and Alex sat down at the base of an ancient tree, pulling out digital tablets to draft what would be known as the Treaty of the Glade. With each article they negotiated, the barriers of unfamiliarity and suspicion slowly eroded. Hours passed, the night deepening around them until finally the document was complete. Both leaders affixed their digital signatures under the watchful gaze of Eldoria's twin moons. Standing once more, they looked towards their respective camps, where their teams awaited with bated breath. With a mutual nod, they agreed to return and prepare their people for what was to come. The path ahead would be fraught with challenges, but the foundation laid this night under the ancient whispers of Eldoria's sacred grove promised a future that neither side had dared to imagine alone. As they parted ways, a gentle rain began to fall, the soft pattern seeming to cleanse the remnants of past animosities. It was a sign, perhaps, from Eldoria itself, a blessing on the newfound alliance that had been born from necessity but would grow through respect and shared purpose.